Rev up your engines! Today I'm going to show you how to fix a very common problem that occurs in cars, and that's a mushy brake pedal. Now the owner of this Toyota is complaining that they bought it brand new, and over the years the pedal starts getting mushier and going lower to the ground. They've had people look at it, but nobody's fixed it. Now years ago it used to be pretty simple. If your brake pedal was getting mushy, you either had a leak in somewhere in the system that sucked air in, and when you press down, the air compresses a lot more than brake fluid, or you had a bad master cylinder that when you pushed on it, it didn't send the fluid out right, and it got mushy. But of course, modern cars have gotten more complex. Now they have ABS systems, and if those modulators go bad, they can open and close at the wrong time and give you a spongy brake pedal. So of course, then you're going to need a mechanic like me to check that fancy stuff out with a fancy scan tool. Now, if your ABS light's on, that's going to give you a code, shows where the problem is, but a lot of times they don't trip codes, and you're going to need a machine like this in order to go through the whole stinking ABS system to activate stuff, not activate them, see what kind of data is coming out. It can get pretty complicated. Now, since I have one of these machines, that's the first thing I did. I went through the system and there was no ABS problems. Everything was working okay. So I know it's not the ABS system. Now, you can't do that yourself, but at least I got rid of the thing that's going to be super expensive first. Now, I always like to get the complex possibilities out of the way first, but you're not going to be able to do that. So what you do is get a nice flashlight, check all the wheels to see if there's any leaks. If there were leaks, there'd be brake fluid leaking and you'd see it. And in this case, I looked all around. The front calipers were dry. The rear calipers were dry. There's no sign of leaking brake anywhere under the vehicle. And anyway, since the customer is the original owner and the brake fluid is still full, I asked them if they've been adding brake fluid, and they said no, they haven't added any brake fluid to it at all. Then I know there's no physical leaks. They had some other mechanics over the course of years bleed air out of the system. But that was really a mistake on those mechanics' behalf. If you have air inside your system, it's gotta come from somewhere. So if you just bled the brakes, that isn't gonna fix anything, because the air got in there somehow, and if something's leaking and then when you take your foot off the brake, it sucks air through that leak, that won't fix anything. So bleeding brakes is not a way of fixing anything on a modern car. You have to find the problem, then fix the problem. Then if you had to open the system out, then you have to bleed the air out of the system. You can't just say, oh, I'll bleed air out of the system. If air is in there, it's in there for a reason, and you got to find the reason that air is in there. So knowing these Toyotas after working on them for decades, I'm going to change the brake master cylinder, because odds are it's just not building the pressure up right. It's not losing fluid, there's no leaks anywhere, and the ABS system doesn't have any weird codes. And when I tested it with my fancy computer, all the systems seem to be working perfectly fine. Odds are the master cylinder is just worn from age, and that's very typical with Toyota vehicles. As they age, a lot of them get a sinking brake pedal. Now, it's really nothing to worry about, because normally it just sinks so far and stays there, but the customer doesn't like it, so I'm going to put this in, see what happens. Now, to get to it, we just move the air box out of the way with the air filter, because the master cylinder's here and we need to get to the bolts. Now the lines, the brake lines that come off the master cylinder are sometimes hard to get off. So I use these little crowfoot wrenches. This is 10 millimeter. It fits right over the line and gets them loose without stripping them. As you can see right here, it fits over, and then when you pull on it, you get them loose. And once it's loose, you can use a regular wrench just to unscrew it and then use your finger to get the line out of the way. They're pretty long, but eventually you get to them and off comes the line. Then you do the back one the same way. Loosen that. Then you just get a 12 millimeter socket and you remove the two bolts that hold it in place. And voila, out it comes. You got to tug a little. Out it comes. And here we go. We know it's bad because fluid is leaking out of the inside. This should not leak. This should be perfectly dry inside, it's not. So we know this is bad and we're going to replace it. Now we want to hope fluid hasn't leaked in here. So I'm getting my pump, I'm sticking it inside, and I'm going to see if any brake fluid is inside there. And luckily my pump isn't pumping any brake fluid out of the brake booster, so it should be okay and not damaged from fluid filling it up. So now we get the new cylinder and it just goes right in. You line it up with the two bolt holes. A little wiggling here. Then we put the two bolts on. Then get the nuts on nice and tight. You want them snug. Now to bleed the air out, it's easier with two people. First, you have someone inside, You tell them to step down on the brake. You keep your fingers over the 2 openings. And then you do that 2 or 3 times where they step on the brake. You let the air out, put your fingers back on. They pick it up, and then you say push it down again. You pick your fingers up, and the air gets out. Then you put the lines on. Okay, push it down. Pick it up. Push it down. Okay. Then you get them nice and tight while their foot is still on the ground. And then you tell them to pick it up. Pick up the brake pedal. That sucks the air out. Now I'm going to crack both lines. And then they have to step down. That pushes air through. Then you tighten the lines and they pick it up. And you do that 4 or 5 times. Okay, push it down. And guess what? Now it's got a nice firm pedal that doesn't sink. Now, as you can see, a new master cylinder fixed the problem. But really, there was no way of knowing this thing was leaking on the inside because you couldn't see it without taking it apart. You have to do all the logical diagnosis first, and then when you can't find anything else wrong, you guess that this is bad, and then when you took it apart and follow the fluid coming out, you know it's bad. So the next time your brakes start to get mushy, now you know how to fix them yourself. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.